Welcome to HD Rare Coins, your ultimate source for rare coins, fascinating history, and the thrill of discovery. From legendary pennies to hidden gems, we explore the world of numismatics one amazing coin at a time. The year was 1940. War thundered across Europe. The skies over London were no longer blue but streaked with smoke and fear. In America, there was tension in the air, a pressure that pulsed beneath daily life. Roosevelt was running for a third term. Factories hummed with life, turning metal into hope. And in the city of Denver, a new penny was born, struck with care, copper gleaming, and a small D tucked just below the date. A symbol of its origin, a whisper from the West, the 1940 D Lincoln cent might look ordinary at a glance, but that would be a mistake. Its story doesn't lie in just its date or mint mark, but in its journey, how it passed from wartime pockets to dusty drawers, from 5-dime store registers to the velvet-lined cases of collectors that it began in the Denver Mint, tucked into the Rocky Mountains, where machines thundered like miniature battleships. Over 81 million of these cents were struck that year, each bearing the famous profile of Abraham Lincoln. The same dignified gaze, the same quiet strength. But the metal beneath that design, solid bronze in 1940, held stories that echoed through the ages. At the time, a penny was more than change. It was gum for a kid. It was a phone call. It was part of the rhythm of daily life. Few who held it knew that decades later, these small coins would be prized for tiny details, errors, luster, strike sharpness. Fewer still imagined some would be worth thousands, but not all 1940 D pennies were created equal. Some emerged with errors that would become the holy grails of collectors. Point 1, discovered in Montana in the late 1980s, was unlike any other. At first glance, it was normal. But under magnification, it revealed a double die obverse. Lincoln's profile bore an eerie ghosting, his chin, nose, and letters of "In God We Trust" subtly repeated, like an echo frozen in metal. Only a handful of these are known to exist. The last sold for $14,750, tucked into a private collection rumored to contain more than $10 million in rare coins. Then there's the mystery of the steel strike. Rumors have long swirled in coin forums and secretive numismatic circles about a single 1940 D cent struck not in bronze, but on a steel planchet, possibly a test strike or a misfeed from wartime materials. No official record exists of it. But a collector in Ohio claims to have one. It sticks to a magnet, weighs 2.7 grams, and shows signs of being struck with worn dies. Whether real or counterfeit remains uncertain, but the legend has only fueled demand for the regular bronze beauties. Among the cleanest examples, a few have stood above all others. In 2018, a full red, mint state 1940 D Lincoln cent graded MS67 RD came to auction. The surfaces were flawless, untouched by time, light, or breath. The coin glowed with deep copper brilliance, as though it had emerged from the press seconds earlier. It sold at Heritage Auctions for $6 for 63, setting a new record for its grade at the time. But another coin, not far behind in value, held something more compelling, a story. A family in Kansas had found an old cigar box in their grandfather's attic. Inside were war medals, letters stained with age, and 24 wheat pennies wrapped in wax paper. Among them was a 1940 D, pristine, its edges sharp, color untouched. They submitted it to PCGS on a whim, not expecting much. It came back MS66 plus RD. But it wasn't the grade that drew headlines, it was the letter included in the submission. It read asterisk, "To whoever finds this, I kept this penny from the day I met Eleanor. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and bought me a soda. I never spent this one. I never could." Asterisk. The coin was auctioned a few months later and fetched $5,800. The buyer wasn't a collector. It was Eleanor's granddaughter. In a sleepy Colorado town, a family was restoring their grandparents' old farmhouse. The walls were stripped to their wooden skeletons, revealing decades of dust, forgotten newspaper clippings, and one odd tin can wedged between the beams. At first, it seemed like trash. But the weight was wrong. Inside were coin rolls, each one labeled with faded pencil, 1 cent 1940 D. 17 full rolls, each untouched. Each still wrapped in paper that smelled like age itself, the family reached out to a coin dealer in Denver. Carefully, the rolls were opened. Most coins were brown with time, but five, just five, emerged blazing red, their luster intact like they had just been minted. One in particular seemed perfect. Not just red, but redder than any copper had a right to be. It was submitted to PCGS, the result, MS67 plus RD, only two others in the world held that grade. None finer. It shattered expectations at auction, selling for $18,200, but the value wasn't just in the copper. It was in the story, a forgotten hoard, a home full of echoes, and a family forever connected to a tiny metal miracle. And yet, not all stories were so heartwarming. In 2006, a strange pattern began to emerge on eBay and niche collector forums. Dozens of supposedly rare 1940 cents were surfacing, each claiming to be a low mintage error. Each had a mint mark that looked odd. Not wrong, but off. Tilted slightly. Too crisp. Too new. The scandal broke when a sharp-eyed grader noticed tooling marks under magnification. The D mint mark had been added, pressed into Philadelphia minted coins using modified punches. It was a full-blown counterfeiting ring, centered around a single workshop in the Midwest. Nearly 300 altered coins were discovered and pulled from circulation. No arrests were ever made, but the damage was done. The fakes had shaken trust, and simultaneously raised the demand for authenticated, slab 1940 pennies. That's when the clipped planchet coin emerged. A collector in San Diego was flipping through a binder of older wheat cents when he noticed one with a bite missing. The edge curved unnaturally, slicing through the 1 cent lettering like a crescent moon. This was a clipped planchet error, and a very clean one. It weighed less than standard, but the strike was strong. Lincoln's face remained intact. The D mint mark, solid. The coin was authenticated, labeled as an off-center clipped planchet, and offered at auction. It sold for $7,900, the price of a decent used car, all for a coin with a factory flaw. Then came the satin mystery: proof coins were not struck at the Denver Mint in 1940. That's fact. But somewhere, in the archives of a private collection in New York, a single 1940 D penny glows with a finish unlike any known specimen. It isn't a mirror proof. Nor is it business strike. It carries a satin-like sheen, smoother and softer than usual. Experts are divided. Was it a presentation piece? A test strike? An intentional anomaly for internal records? It has never been sold. But it was insured for $30,000. Rumor says it once belonged to a retired mint employee who held a private tray of unlisted specimens. He passed away in 1991. The tray disappeared. The collector who now holds the coin never shows it publicly. He refers to it only as the ghost. Its photo circulates quietly among elite collectors, blurry and sacred. In 1951, the world was holding its breath. The echoes of World War II still rang in conversations, photographs, and scarred landscapes, while the Cold War quietly crept into American life like a fog that never lifted. Korea burned. The first color television broadcast stunned living rooms. The Beat generation whispered rebellion on typewriters. And amid all of this, in the heart of Colorado, the Denver Mint roared with the metallic clatter of copper coins born into a country trying to define itself in peace. One of those coins, the 1951 D Lincoln Wheat Penny, slid off a press and into a canvas bag with tens of thousands of its siblings. It was warm, untouched, glowing with that rich reddish golden copper that only freshly struck bronze could produce. To the mint workers, it was just one of over 625 million produced that year. But as the years wore on, and pennies turned brown, lost, scratched, forgotten, this exact coin, somehow survived. Abraham Lincoln's profile was strong, classic, unmistakable. His jawline still sharp, the "In God We Trust" arched over his head like a crown, with "Liberty" sitting confidently to his left. The date, 1951, marked its identity, but it was the tiny D beneath it that would make all the difference. It told the world this was not just a 1951 penny, it was a 1951 penny from Denver, from a place that didn't just mint coins, but made memories last forever in metal. Most pennies were spent, rubbed down, flattened by vending machines, cash drawers, soda bottles, and streetcar turnstiles. But not all, some 1951 DS were hoarded. Some were hidden in sock drawers, piggy banks, and post-war coffee tins by grandfathers who believed in saving for, just in case. And in one incredible case, a coin was stashed behind a brick in a garage wall in Kansas, sealed with a note, asterisk, "If I don't make it back, let this be part of my story." Asterisk, the man never returned from Korea. But 62 years later, a boy discovered that coin while playing hide and seek. It was sent to a grading company, cleaned gently, and authenticated as MS66 plus red, one of only a handful at that grade that it later sold for $7,100 at a Midwestern auction house, and the boy used part of the money to take his mother on her first vacation in 20 years, but that's not where the 1951 D legend ends. There are the RPMs. Repunched mint marks, anomalies that happened when the small d had to be hand-punched into the die more than once. In some of these rare coins, you can see the ghost of an earlier d peeking out beneath the main one, like an echo frozen in copper. Some show the doubling clearly, others barely hint at it, but to collectors, they're treasure maps in miniature. One such RPM coin, sharp and uncirculated, fetched $3,850 at auction in 2021. And even among the normal coins, there were gems, pieces that escaped circulation entirely. They were saved in original bank-wrapped rolls, tucked into safety deposit boxes, passed down like family secrets. When those coins resurfaced decades later, still burning with their original mint luster, they shocked graders. One, submitted from a forgotten Illinois collection, returned as MS67 red, nearly perfect. Fewer than a dozen 1951 DS exist at that level, and what about the copper? Back then, the coin was made from 95% copper, with 5% tin and zinc. It weighed 3.11 grams, and unlike the later zinc core pennies of the 1980s, this one felt solid, honest. You could flick it and feel its age. You could stare at the wheat stalks on the reverse and imagine farms, fields, and families growing up in the American Midwest, planting corn, raising cattle, and trusting pennies to hold value. On the reverse, the two wheat ears still curled proudly around the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, a design that lasted from 1909 to 1958. Below that sat the quiet Latin motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. It was a message that meant more in 1951 than ever before. It was a Sunday morning in Dallas when the widow of a retired train conductor opened a forgotten metal safe hidden beneath a false floorboard in her garage. The air was thick with dust and silence, the kind that lives only in old rooms and older memories. Inside, beneath decades of fading photographs and war ration tokens, were 12 paper-wrapped rolls of wheat pennies, each labeled 1951 D in meticulous block handwriting. The coins hadn't seen daylight in 70 years, she brought them to a local coin show the next weekend. Most brushed them off, common date, common mint. But one dealer, the kind with a sixth sense for numismatic gold, asked if he could unwrap one roll. What spilled out stunned him. Dozens of uncirculated, blazing red specimens, coins untouched by time. No fingerprints, no corrosion. Mint state. At least 5 showed signs of possibly reaching MS66 RD or higher. The coins were graded. One, nearly perfect, with flawless luster, blazing red, minimal contact marks, and pinpoint strike clarity, was awarded the elusive MS67 RD grade. When listed at a major auction house, it sparked a bidding war between two collectors who had never seen such brilliance in this date. The final hammer price, $9,400. The story reached national coin forums within days, with collectors suddenly combing through their old jars, coin folders, and boxes. Demand surged. Even mid-grade specimens like MS64 Red saw a jump in value, now selling for upwards of $45 to $60, while MS65 Red started nudging past the $100 mark when certified by top grading services. But this wasn't the only surprise of the decade. In Michigan, a school janitor cleaning out a storage closet at a closed-down elementary school stumbled upon a wooden time capsule left behind from the class of 1951. Inside were handwritten notes, a school badge, a black and white class photo, and a tiny, torn wax envelope marked, "Penny from this year." The coin inside, a 1951 D wheat cent, but not just any. Somehow, untouched, it still gleamed with full red luster. Perhaps placed in the capsule the day it was struck, it had been preserved in absolute darkness, temperature stability, and stillness for over 70 years. When submitted to PCGS, it stunned even seasoned graders. It received a solid MS-66 RD, and with the story attached, it auctioned for $6,150, with all proceeds donated to restore the abandoned school into a community museum. And while most of these stories are about coins kept safe, one was about a coin nearly lost forever. In 2020, during a heavy flood in Missouri, a man cleaning out the debris from his parents' ruined basement found a single copper coin stuck to the back of an old wooden dresser drawer. The water damage had tarnished much of it, but what remained revealed the clear 1951 D marking, still sharply struck. Intrigued, he submitted it along with a few other random coins he had pulled from the house. The graders almost missed it, but under careful lighting, they noticed an anomaly. The coin had a broad strike error. It had been struck without the retaining collar in place, which allowed the planchet to expand slightly beyond its normal size, giving the coin a stretched, irregular edge. The detail was crisp, but the shape was wrong. Broad strikes from this era are rare. Ones in high grade. Nearly unheard of. It was graded MS-64 RB, red-brown, and sold to a niche-era collector for $3,875. A coin that survived floodwaters, neglect, and the passage of generations had finally found its place in the spotlight. Still, the most mysterious of all 1951 D cents may never be seen again. Whispers have long surrounded the tale of a 1951 D proof-like strike, an experimental coin, not intended for circulation, allegedly pressed using polished dies and planchets, perhaps as a test for upcoming designs or internal presentations. It was never supposed to leave the Denver Mint.